Okay, here we go. Our nun foil works. So section off the sides, top, and the back. I'll start off in the back with a quite large horizontal section. Elevate the foil. And the color I'll be using is a level 6 red, a little level 7 red, and the ratio's 1:1 with 30 volume developer. My aim target is like a 5.5 red. So I'm working on a level 2 here. So I want to retain as much natural warmth as I possibly can. So that's why I upped the developer by adding that level 7 red, which will give me a bit more lift through the tint without burning out too much of the natural warmth that I want to retain. Because the natural warmth, my end result here is a red highlight, so that natural warmth won't fade. So I can up my tint slightly and lower my developer to give me the end result that I want, like a 5.5 level red. For the back portion of this technique, I'll be going through with horizontal sections. So just once we go over the basic rudiments of this foil technique, then it's all basically mechanical. Okay. So again, next section, I'll come out a horizontal section. I'll weave the hair. I'll elevate the hair high, place the foil right at the root, and my color placement, I place the color at the mid shaft first, and then I gently bump up the root area. And with these longer lengths, I like to lift the hair and hit it with product, and lower the hair and hit it with product, which allows me to cut down on my time. And it also gives me a better distribution and saturation of the actual tint that's in the foil. Because again, when we're working with foils, we can anticipate a little bit of the chemical expansion. Okay, so again, still working in the same manner, and I'm taking the back in one horizontal section, because notice the side sections, they veer off into the back a bit, which will allow me to take the back center in one section as opposed to breaking it down into two. So again, same technique. Now I'm just jumping into the mechanics of the actual foil technique. As I reach the side area, make sure that that very first weave that you place in is quite fine, so you won't get the end result too stripy around the hairline. Because in most cases, most human beings, the hair around the hairline is a little bit finer than the density or the thickness as you move away from the hairline. So that just gives you that nice balance. So again, still working in the same manner, working with clean packets, weave the hair symmetrical. Symmetrical means the exact amount of depth and the exact amount of spacing between your weaves. Product and hair, they're all in the same area. I don't really like to go beyond that 50% mark in the foil. I like the hair and the product all in the same area. Again, because it helps me to control my time. Okay, and on the opposite side again, I'm working the exact same technique. You just have to keep in your mind that your foil count, the space between each foil, the density of each weave, it really needs to be consistent. So if you're not too sure about your consistency before you start off the left side, go back and actually count how many sections, how many foils you use to complete the side. So at least you have a bearing in your mind, like a clear aim to aim for, or you can actually go and use a finger and just space them out. Do what you have to do, in the beginning of picking up this habit. Once you get this technique down in the habit, your spacing will be quite consistent. But if you need to, take a little bit more time and get your mind around those really important details, because it does have a strong effect on your overall end result. Okay, and now as we reach the top area, I'll break the top into two sections, and I'm working with slightly horizontal sections here. I'll go in using our herringbone technique. So herringbone, kind of think of like the bones of a fish where everything is symmetrically balanced, and that's what I'm aiming for. And around the hairline, I'll weave that hair a bit finer because I don't want the hair falling too intense, too in your face this time around. If I wanted a stronger effect, I can weave that heavier. So it all, like the weave angle and the amount of hair they actually weave will actually define the intensity of the color to the front. So again, with each diagonal section, I'll start to pivot slightly. I'll pivot the right portion of that foil slightly. So I'm aiming for a tighter group once both sides to the top incorporate. Okay, so again, tight weave. Make sure you weave the hair symmetrically. Again, the same depth and the same spacing. Remember to, with each progressive section, to slightly pivot that section, because your final sections at the crown area, you want them to kind of like be in a V shape. So you have to gradually adapt that angle, which will give you a more natural effect. So again, product and hair, they're at the mid space of my foils. Make sure you weave consistently. As I weave the hair, I kind of think as myself being a sewing machine. A sewing machine will stitch quite accurately, so I really want to mimic the mechanics of the sewing machine. Once I get my angle and my angle adaptations in set, then it's all mechanical from there on. Okay, so it's the same technique. The only deviation here is to the right side. That's where her parting's at. So I'll take this section just a little bit deeper and a little bit tighter of an angle. Again, always starting off, pay close consideration to the amount of density you have at that hairline, because you may 95% of the time you will have to adapt your technique to take into consideration the fineness of the hair through the hairline or the lack of density. So just be aware of those key elements. So I'm working in the same technique. Again, every section I'll be pivoting slightly, so I'll gradually become more diagonal. Always keep into consideration the mechanics of your foil works, and you have to work super clean. Make sure you're getting the foil right up there at the roots. Don't exceed the line of the foil, because the foil retains heat. Heat's a catalyst, so the human scalp will kick off 96.7 degrees, and the foil will retain that heat. So with that heat, anticipate the product to expand slightly, so don't go beyond that, the mark of the foil. because you may get rabbits, and those aren't attractive, and they're really time consuming, embarrassing, and exhausting to correct. Okay, so notice how the foils are gradually pivot towards each other, and my end result is that the foils fall into like a slight V shape, so it'll give me like a nice symmetry and balance of my herringbone technique through the top. So even consistency, and then it's all mechanics from there. All right, well there we have it. There's our nun hair color technique. Enjoy.